graduating high school this Friday, so I'm in this kind of fun, weird, in between phase where I'm going to graduation parties, and we just had our senior trip a few days ago. And on the way, driving to my school to get on the bus for that senior trip, a weird memory came back to me that I haven't thought of in a little while, but it's kind of one of those core memories. This was, I guess, the summer of 2014 or 2013. The summer before I was going into kindergarten. I was at Wildwood, New Jersey, the beach, and this was the only time to this day, the only time I've been to that beach. And we were on the boardwalk, and as I remember, that's a pretty big boardwalk they have some like Ferris wheel and rides and games, and all the flashing lights and all those kind of stimulations of a boardwalk. The smells mixed of like, French fries and funnel cake and dumpster and vinegar and salt water. And you see people selling like air sprayed t-shirts and whatnot. And it was at nighttime. And I want to say they were like doing fireworks or something. But I could be remembering it wrong, because the other thing I remember is that I'm pretty sure it was Firework by Katy Perry was also playing over speakers loudly. So I could be confusing those two things. I remember the song was definitely playing. Whether both of them were going on, I don't know. It doesn't matter. But I remember just like looking up at the dark like sky or whatever, and also at the lights all around me. And my dad was pulling. I think he was pulling my little brother in a wagon. Like we used to have this little cart, red. It was called like the Red Rider, little wagon that he would pull us in when we were little. I think I was walking beside it. I might have been in it with it. It doesn't matter. But I remember being aware of the fact that I was about to start kindergarten and just being kind of torn up about it. I swear, I'm not attributing meaning to this event after the fact. Like, I remember vividly in that moment recognizing that the place I was in was like special and melancholy to me, because I just knew I was in between something kind of that felt bigger than myself. Like I was being kind of moved around in the machine of life or something. I was nervous about losing some friends from preschool or whatever it was at the time, and trying to meet new people. And I was a little excited and a little nervous too, and most of all, just recognizing this weird in-betweenness of it. And that it was like a ball thrown up in the air. If the ball could stop at its peak and just look around and feel the kind of weightlessness, that's how it felt. And I guess the reason I've really been thinking about it as it came to me now is that I feel the same way again. Here I am in the same place, just at a slightly different moment. It's not kindergarten anymore. It's whatever's next. Maybe college, the real world. That's what I'm going into now. But I feel exactly the same. Reminiscing on, in both cases, the little amount of experience that I've had up until now, just reminiscing on it and recognizing that I don't want to stay there. I didn't love preschool. I definitely didn't love high school. But just still, the fact that you spent so much time there, or what felt like a lot of time, abandoning it feels, you're apprehensive about it. And one of the weirdest things too is that I feel exactly the same. The head and the mind that I had on my shoulders in that moment as a 4-year-old, or I guess a 5-year-old, sorry. It's the exact same inner voice that's with me today. And it feels like no time has gone by, you know? And I know people always tell you, you know, it's going to fly by. Don't get old. And you think, yeah. And you know you're going to, but at the same time you tell yourself, I'm not going to do it. You know, and furthermore, you know you're going to die too. And it's funny the things that we can hide from ourselves in plain sight. We know there's very few things in this world that are guaranteed. One of them is that you're going to die, and that's a pretty big one. And we just ignore it, just forget about it. You know, and everyone acts like even that getting old is a guarantee. That's not even a guarantee. I have people that I go to school with that have already died. And they surely didn't think they were going to die. But that's not what this is about. My main point is just that I can see how people get there. I understand how people get old. Because in my limited time, which feels like everything, because it's everything to me. The 18 years I've been here is all I've got. So from that perspective, things just keep moving faster and faster, and I know that's how it's going to continue to be. In a weird way, at 6 years old, I felt like I had been here for just as long as I feel now. Because in both situations, it's 100% of my existence. And as I keep living, every day becomes a smaller part of that existence, and so it just speeds up and speeds up. But seriously, the inner monologue I had then is the same. The dreams, the aspirations, the things that excited me and worried me and scared me, exactly the same. And you know, that's one of those memories that's so old and so kind of blurry that it feels almost like it never happened. You know, it feels like a dream or something, and if you didn't have your family or other people that were there to agree with you that it happened, you'd almost wonder if it did. I think the only changes I've really undergone since being that little is just putting my fears and anxieties more into context. You know, they felt very overwhelming when I was little. I felt more powerless to them, and I never really gave that inner monologue a voice. And I think now, my inner monologue, the one that stayed the same, and my outer voice that speaks, I feel like they're more closely aligned now, which is, I think, is a good thing. I think that's kind of one of the ultimate goals of developing. And I have more context, I think, on how powerful those fears really are and how much of a grip I should allow them to hold over me. Because most of the things I was afraid of as a little guy, you know, really don't matter. And I guess one of the things that kind of scares me right now is just the idea that I have pretty much just spent the most formative part of my life. It's pretty much over. Of course, the next 10 years being in my as a young adult will be, I think, probably more enjoyable, more interesting, because I can start doing the things I want to do. But the formative years that sculpted me are pretty much over. And I think anytime you finish something big like that, you just wonder, did I do that right? Because no one really told you while they were going on, hey, this is your only time going through first grade. This is your only 10th birthday. And then it's just over, and it's not like I want to do it again. It wasn't that great. You know, and the whole time I was looking forward. I was looking kind of to now, really, to being an adult is what I always really wanted. Want to be independent, and I still do. But it just makes me wonder, you know, I spent that whole time looking forward, you know, but did I spend those forward-looking moments as well as I could have. I don't know, and I think, again, I will be in this exact same seat, the same seat that I was in when I was 6, the same seat that I'm in now that I'm 18, and I think I'll be in the same seat at 28, and at 38, and at 68, if I'm lucky enough to reach any one of those milestones. But it's always going to be just me. 6-year-old me, 18-year-old me, now year-old me, And the gap between each one of those landmarks is only going to get smaller and smaller as time moves faster and faster. It's funny, you can only really be present when you're young enough to feel like every day is the world beginning, When you're little, you feel like the world just began with you, and that your parents have always been there. And now I'm within 10 years of, pretty much within 10 years of the ages my parents were when they had me. And I'm wise enough to know that in 10 years 10 years is going to go by quickly, for one thing. Quicker than my last 10 years have gone by, which was already quick. And I'm wise enough to know that, I don't, not that I won't be ready to be a parent or something, but that I'm still just going to be me, I thought my parents had something that I didn't as a little kid. Everyone thinks that, oh, my parents know. They're going to take care of me. They know something. They know all the answers. They didn't. They didn't. And it also makes me realize, I thought the world began with me. Like I said, and I thought my parents had just, I knew they hadn't been here forever, but they had been here for so long. But only, 10 years before I was born did they graduate high school, like I'm at right now. And that was in the late, 90s, early 2000s, and it's like, that wasn't that long ago. Even though I wasn't alive then, I know it's not that long ago. I'm not afraid of any of this. I'm just pensive about it. Well, I guess I can't say I'm not afraid of any of it, but that's not why I'm making this up. These aren't fears. They're just it's just crazy. And like I said, everyone tells you, oh, you're gonna, you grew up so fast. You're gonna grow up so fast. But the thing is that in the moment, it feels so long. And only when you turn around and remember the summer before kindergarten are you like, oh yeah, that was yesterday. I guess there's just very few moments in this busy existence where you have a second, like the ball that's thrown up into the air and it's just hanging at its peak for a second. There's very few moments where you just stop and look around. And during those few moments, they just feel weird. You're in between these chaotic cycles of being thrown into experience. And you're taking a deep breath, you're excited, you're appreciative to have a moment to rest, but you also have a second to look back and say, wow, that was quick. That was fun, that was quick, that was not great, that was whatever. That was what it was, and wow, I did so much, whether it was bad or good. And then you also have the understanding that this is a very brief second where you're going to be able to have this appreciation, and that you're about to be thrown into the ringer again, tossed into another focused period where you'll be going so long that you'll forget to look around, and you'll say, I can't wait to be beyond this. And when you are beyond it, eventually you'll look around again and say, oh, there's no beyond it, no matter where I go, it's just me. to just be a little older.